I like to call them terrific tools. The first tool is what I call the back and forth video. The back and forth video. Now, what is that? Here I am in Ireland, and I'm about to tell the first part of this story through the video. But then I'm going to go back and forth from the video to me to finish the story. So same story, I'm going from a video back to me for the conversational part. Here it goes. In fact, raise your hand if you watched any of the Summer Olympics. Oh, I love the Summer Olympics. But I like the 2012 Summer Olympics even better. Because, do you know who the oldest participant in the 2012 Summer Olympics was? Yes, yes. It was a 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. So my 7-year-old son and I are watching this on TV. And of course, all the commentators kept harping on was the guy's age. Right? They just kept saying, he's 74. Can you believe he's 74? By golly, he's 74. Finally, my 7-year-old son looked up and said, well, how old is the horse? Now, about a week later, I couldn't get that question out of my mind, so I Googled it. And they asked this man, they said, well, how long will you continue to compete? Guess what his answer was? He said, I can go on forever, but my horse is 15. And that's when I realized, Eileen, that my son's question was much more relevant than I thought. And even though he was only 7 years old my son, not the horse, was only 7 years old at the time, he taught me something very important about self-development, about remarkable results, about being great at anything. Never stop asking questions. Never stop asking questions. The moment you stop asking questions is the moment you stop growing. And we know from nature that the moment you stop growing is the moment you fall. Never stop asking questions. Now, let me stop right there. If you've seen me speak over Zoom recently, you've seen some of these stories you're going to see today. Why? Because I'm teaching you how to use Zoom the way I use it. So I'm not going to use different stories than I'm normally using. But that was a story and a point. And I start with the story with me. I start with the story with the video, and then I end it with me. So here's my question to you. Why? Why don't I just give the whole story right here? Raise your hand if you have a thought on that. Why don't I just give the whole story right here? Let me go to Harry. Harry, what do you think?
Well, it makes it personal and also immediate. It's happening right now.
It's happening right now. That's good. Yeah, I like that. Let me give me another answer. Shell, what do you think? It's great to see you, first of all. It was great to see you too, Harry, but we already talked pre-call, so good. All right, so Shell, what do you think?
Because you brought the excitement of the crowd in first thing. We saw the story. We saw you walking back and forth. You know, we saw the energy that you don't have normally in a Zoom call.
That's it.
That was
That's
nice.
it. Thank you. It's energy. It's about the energy. And what I like to do is throw it to the video for the punchlines, for the lines that really get the audience involved, because then you can feel that energy. Because now, if you don't do that and you just do it here on the call, it's fine, but you got to make an adjustment. See, if you think about how I just did it on the video, if I did it here and said the same punchline that my son said, and my 7-year-old son looked up and said, well, how old is the horse? If I pause just as long as I pause on the video, Will, we got a problem.
Yeah.
Right? I learned this from watching the late night hosts. Because remember, when everybody was quarantined, the late night hosts, when they did their monologue, when they would normally hit a line and the audience would laugh, they would wait a while. Now it's like this. Well, how old is the horse? About a week later, I couldn't get that question out of my mind. So we got to just move on. There's no reason to pause if you can't hear any laughter, right? So I like to throw it to the video for that purpose. All right. So Will, before I get you involved here in a second, and you didn't even know you're going to be involved, but before I do, I want to show you something else. It doesn't just have to be a back and forth. It could be a fourth back and forth. So on this next one, you'll see that I'll start the story here, and then I'll throw it to the video, and then I'll come back to me. That's something you can do as well. And you might be familiar with this story, but again, it's the one that I tell on stage. So one thing you might not know about me just by looking at me, we've been on the call for what, how many, 10 minutes now, is that I am what you call, what's the term for that? Black. Yes, black. That's it. Well, hold on, Harry. Let me tell you how I found this out. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Raise your hand if you're from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Okay, good. Let's talk about them. Actually, I love Lancaster. It's a wonderful town. I was there about a year ago. It's much more diverse than it used to be, but this is just where this happened to me. About 20 years ago, I used to be one of the lead trainers for one of the biggest training firms in the United States. And anytime I would have more than 25 people in my workshop, they would provide me with an assistant. And most of the time, I had never met that person before. So here I am early in the morning in the hotel, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm in the lobby. I see a table. On the other side of the table, I see a lady. And I'm thinking, oh, wow, this must be my assistant. Well, take a look at what happened. And I walked up to her and I said, hi, I'm Craig Valentine. I'm the trainer today. And I kid you not, this is exactly what she did. Oh, hi. She said, you're the trainer? I said, yes, I'm the trainer. She said, oh my gosh. They're gonna be shocked. Now, you ever know the answer, but you wanna ask the question anyway? So I said, wait, why are they gonna be shocked? She said, because you don't look like the regular trainer. I said, I know I'm tall. She said, no. She said, I don't know how to tell you this. But you're black. I said, I'll tell you what, 5 minutes after I start my workshop, I want you to duck your head in there and see how shocked they look. She said, okay, but I'm telling you, they're gonna be shocked. So I start my workshop at 9 o'clock. 5 minutes later, she ducks her head in there. After my first break, she runs up to me in the hallway and attacks me. She said, oh my gosh, you had them. They were listening to you. You had them in the palm of your hand. And then she looked at me as if to say, and you're still black. See, what Deborah didn't realize, when I went through my MBA program at Johns Hopkins University, I had a professor named Dr. C. And Dr. C used to always say to us, you're always to something to someone. You're always to something to someone. This has nothing to do with being black or white. It has to do with being to something to someone else, right? You might be too black or too white, too big, too small, too fat, too skinny, too Republican, too Democrat, too Dallas Cowboys, too Washington football teams, right? You're too something to someone. Matter of fact, raise your hand if you felt like you were too something before. Be honest. Raise your hand if you felt like too something. What was it for you, Will? Too what?
Well, too samurai.
Too samurai. Yeah. And when you first got to Japan, did they think you were too American?
Too foreign, basically. Yeah.
Too foreign. Yeah. Raise your hand. Somebody else. Raise your hand if you felt like you were too something. Let me go with Robert. I assume Robert's in New York. Robert, too what?
New York.
To New York. I like it. So I always ask people, and you know, I remember one time I was in Minnesota and a guy said, too handsome. I was like, yeah, and obviously too humble. You know what it is for you. So now what I could do, and I haven't done this yet, I usually do the rest of it here because I have the conversation here. But if I really want to get to the real punchline, meaningful line in that story, I could go back into that video and have it finished there.
Always to something to some. So finally, I got tired of him saying this. I said, okay, Dr. C, you're always to something to someone. What do I do about that? He said, be too good for it to matter.
Oh, to have hair again. But anyway, so what I'm going to do next time is make sure that instead of trying to go back and find the exact spot of that video, I'll just put another video right after it that goes right into that part there. Because you can't neglect to show the effect that you had on an audience, right? Because the people who are watching you are thinking, wow, if he can have that effect on that audience, can he have an effect on our audience? That's why I always say, people say, I had a video on my this is just something I didn't expect to cover, but I had a video on my website for years of me and my signature story, Your Dream Is Not for Sale. And people were like, Craig, the quality of that video is not great. I said, I know, but the quality of the audience is. The audience response, the audience reaction. They don't care if it's a grainy video if you're getting great results. And so always put the ones that have the greatest audience reaction online. Does no good to see a very crisp and clean video with no audience response. Okay. Again, we want to put it online so we can get on stage.